don't know if you've been paying attention to TV ads recently, either you guys or those listening at home, but apparently there's a federal election coming up in the next couple of weeks. For 40 years, and we're going to have a bit of fun with this. So for 40 years, whichever party won the regional New South Wales seat of Eden Monaro also won government. It became what it was known as a bellwether seat. So basically, if it went one way, 1 year, or one election cycle, that was a surefire way to know which party was going to win the election. It hasn't so much happened more recently. It kind of has been debunked a couple of times. But it did get me thinking about bellwether stats. Potentially those which, if they come through, your team wins 100% of the time, 90% of the time. So we put Christian on this, and he wasn't too happy about having to try and find all this for us, but he's come up with some amazing stuff. So there are some stats out there where if players deliver a certain standard, your team's going to win just about every time.
Yeah, so I've started to look at just some simple stats and sort of looked at thresholds that aren't too out there. So like not looking at, if, Scott Pendlebury gets 45 or more touches and you win X amount of games. So, started to look at disposals, score, assist, inside 50s, handballs, a few other stats. And if a certain player reaches a certain benchmark in that stat or minimum in that stat, who has the best winning record. So to sort of start with, 23 plus disposals. So about 23 disposals in a game is sort of just your above average sort of category. Probably get 6 or 7 players winning 23 or more disposals in a game. Lockie Bramble, so this is in the last 3 years. So this is starting in 2023 when he was at Hawthorn. His teams are 7 wins and 0 losses when he's had 23 disposals in a game.
Lockie Bramble watch.
Lockie Bramble's a big one. Another halfback flanker, Darcy Wilmot. The Lions are 11 wins, 0 losses and 1 draw when he's finished with the 23 or more disposals. Okay. Jace Burgoyne, another sort of smooth mover off halfback. 7 wins, 0 losses and 1 draw.
So we're undefeated so far.
Yeah.
Yep. And then there's a few that sort of do have 1 or 2 defeats in there. So Jared Berry has done it 15 times, had the 23 or more disposals for 13 wins and 1 draw with the Lions. Still side bottom in the last 3 years. Collingwood are 15-2 when he has the 23 or more disposals.
If he pulls out a quote unquote vintage performance, the Pies normally do pretty well. It's interesting. A few of these names, until you get to sort of side bottom, a few of these names are kind of like, that's a pretty good game for these guys. It means that again, I don't know, the load is being shared, or there's possession domination, or some other bits and pieces at play. But it's interesting to see someone like Sidebottom, who's so talented, and yes, a veteran, but 23 is not a high bar for him.
Yeah.
So for him to be 15-2 if he gets 23 or more, it's kind of interesting.
But even the half-back guys as well, I wonder how Bramble would correlate with the rest of those doggies boys, because they tend to like that ball use from half-back. You think of Bailey Dale as well. I mean, I know Dale's not down here, but he'd be the one that you'd think if you get
more,
you get the ball 25 plus in his hands, the dog should win most of the time, but it's Bram. I don't know.
I think Dale's a bit probably...
He gets it too often.
Yeah, he gets screwed by consistency. The way he'll get 31 and the Bulldogs will lose. So, that's sort of where the twist comes. So we'll drop down to score assists. So just guys that have had at least multiple score assists in a game, so 2 or more. Eric Hipwood's the big one. So not involvement,
sorry.
Direct assists. Just direct assists. So, the pass before the actual score. Eric Hipwood, who has come up as a bit of a bellwether player here. He's in a few of these stats, but he's 16 wins and 2 losses when he's had at least 2 score assists in a game.
It's interesting.
John Newcomb and the Hawks are 15-3. Jack Crisp and Collingwood, when he has 2 or more score assists, 11-1. So you sort of go down to Lloyd Meek and Jake Riccardi are 6 wins and 0 losses. So that's as many wins and 0 losses as I could find with a player with at least 2.
Score assists to hit outs to advantage count?
Yes, that's all part of it. So it's just anyway you set up the actual scorer. So we've got inside 50s is another one. So 5 or more inside 50s. So similar to the 23 plus disposals, 5 or more inside 50s probably got about 8 to 10 players per game reaching that figure. So it's not an out there mark. Paddy Dow's an interesting one. Again, 2 teams in that time that we're talking about. 7 wins and 0 losses for the Blues and the Saints when Paddy Dow has at least 5 inside 50s.
That's interesting, yeah.
Cam McKenzie for the Hawks, 6-0. I think he has a pretty good winning record anyway in the games he's played.
I was going to say, yeah.
But if he's had the 5 inside 50s that haven't lost. Cam Rayner is a big one for the Lions, 14 wins and 2 losses if he has the 5 or more inside 50s.
You talk about...
When he plays...
So we know about it.
Right? You're talking about barometer players. Yeah. He's right up there as that name, and that stat actually kind of illustrates that.
Yeah, and again, smaller number, but Bobby Hill was surprised. Only 4 times has he had 5 or more inside 50s, and Collingwood's won all 4 of those games. So if he can get out and sort of deliver the ball in.
As 2 Carlton nuffies, was Paddy Dow's knock not his ball use? often.
It was his ball use, but it was also his consistency. But then he also
Guess he wasn't
was starved of
playing,
opportunity a bit as well. So you could never just get it together on the park, for consistent amounts of time. What if we look at something a little bit more quirky, Christian? You look at getting free kicks. If you're getting the rub of the green as a player, especially if it gets into someone who's maybe a bit more damaging, is there like a bellwether player that's a poster boy for this?
Yeah, there is. So 3 or more free kicks is the one I used here. And Zach Butters and Port Adelaide, 8-0 if he gets awarded 3 or more free kicks in a game. So they're 8-0. Probably the only one that's sort of multiple wins and 0 losses.
He'd be top of this chart for frees against as well, I reckon.
Yeah, we should look at that too.
Yeah, it could be, yeah. Hayden McLean, 5 wins and 0 losses when he's had 3 or more.
Well, you're probably thinking those are maybe in the forward 50 and maybe getting a couple of extra shots at goal, potentially.
And a couple more. 8-1 Isaac Heaney in the Swans when he's had 3 or more. And Nick Watson, who we know how good he is at drawing the high tackle free
Sure
kicks. They're
is.
6-1 when he gets his 3 or more free kicks. And then probably down the other end a little bit, James Sicily. The Hawks are 7 wins and 1 loss when he's had 3 or more free kicks. Most of these guys are probably forwards and, as he said, getting a few more shots on goal. But Sicily's probably one that's in defence.
I was going to say, I wonder if that's while he's spending time forward or in defence and whether that actually matters. But I guess wherever he has the footy, he uses it generally pretty well in the back line anyway. So.
Yeah, except for yesterday, he had a few shockers. But
Wasn't his best.
Any perfect win-loss ledgers if you get a certain number of kicks?
So I used 10 or more kicks for this one, and an interesting name came out on top, or 2 interesting names really. Brad Close for Geelong. When he has 10 or more kicks, Geelong have been 8-0 in the last 3 years. So we sort of know how creative,
especially that last kick inside 50.
Yeah, how creative Myers and Stengel are. Again, they're probably your consistent ones. Brad Close is the one that if he can also get involved in.
So they got a good crop of half forwards, the Caddies.
Yeah. And Billy Frampton, an interesting one for Collingwood, 5-0 when he has had 10 or more kicks.
Yeah, usually a bit of a lockdown kind of operator.
Yeah, he's actually not a bad kick of the footy. Even his action just looks real technically.
Doesn't matter where they go, as long as he gets 10 of them.
As long as he gets 10 of them, yeah.
I'm just saying, he's a good kick of the footy.
Jack Gittevans, another one, 14-1 when he's, and again, going back to he would have been at Collingwood for one of these years. 14 wins and 1 loss when he's had at least 10 kicks in a game.
A couple of really interesting ones further down your list, and it's these guys are perfect and by a long way compared to the next best player. So if you get 3 or more intercept marks, there's one name that's like head and shoulders above.
Yeah. Isaac Quaynor, 14 wins, or Isaac Quaynor and Collingwood, 14 wins and 0 losses if he's able to pluck 3 or more intercept marks.
What does this go back 2 years?
3 years, the start of 2023.
So was that the Quaynor for All Australian campaign? Does that include that year?
That 2023 season would have been
a few of those.
This, yeah.
And then who's the next best there? Because that's 14-0 is quite a high number.
Yeah, so Liam Stocker's the next best with a 100% win rate of 4-0. So in the last 3 years, 4 times had 3 or more instant marks. A guy that was really high on here as well, so we spoke about Quaynor, 14-0. Nathan Murphy, who obviously not playing this year, but in the previous 2 years, Collingwood was 7 wins and 1 loss when he also took 3 or more intercept marks.
Strong defensive stocks, and we will touch on the Pies' defence a little bit later as well. And last one before we do move on, a couple of interesting names for the metres gained win-loss. So if you have more than 375 or more metres gained, these players are perfect. And there's a strange name at the top of this one too.
Yeah, it's probably more of an inside bull type player, Ollie Wines. So we know how good he is at feeding out the handballs, and we obviously do assisted metres gained. So how many metres the guy you're giving it to, how many metres he's actually gaining. So Ollie Wines usually higher in that stat, but if he's actually getting the ball moving himself, Port are 10 wins and 0 losses in the past 3 years. Where Ollie Wines
get off the chain.
And another one at Port Adelaide who hasn't not playing as regularly this year, Dylan Williams across half back. They were 11-1 across the last 3 years if he's had 375 or more metres gained. Ollie Wines 10-0, Dylan Williams 11-1, and a few other names. Paddy Dow again comes up here 5-0.
Get him in.
And Cam Rayner's another name that came up here 8-1 if he has 375 or more metres gained.
Bellwether stats. We've touched on players. We might do one more next week with teams.
I'll get that for you next week.
We'll set you another task, but some interesting stuff nonetheless.